Hey, Mama friend. Welcome back to another episode of The Mama Mindset. I'm your host and creator, Amy Cawthron. And today's amazing interview episode is with Judith Joy. She is fantastic. She's fabulous. I'm very, very excited for you to listen to her thoughts, her words of wisdom. She has great tips, tools, and resources for us today. She's a speaker, she's a coach, she's an author, she's a teacher. She has been studying self-improvement, personal development for 22 years. I'm blown away with some of the tips that she gives us. We talk about some different journaling options. She gives us a breathing technique. There's all kinds of things packed into this episode. So I hope you grab a pen and paper. I hope you take some notes on this today. It's probably one that you're going to want to come back to. But as always, I'll put all of her contact information and any resources in the show notes as well. One of the things that I want you to really pay close attention to and really start to try and feel within your life is her topic on high vibe. And honestly, I just love the term. I'm not going to steal it from her. I might steal it from her, but I'll always try and quote her on it because high vibe is what I feel like all of us moms are searching for and working towards and wanting to get back to in our lives. Before we're moms, I feel like we're high vibing it all the time. And then we have children and somehow we start to lose sight of that. We start to lose sight of the things that really fill us up. And Judith calls that high vibe when we do things that fill us up, that really light us up. And she explains that in the episode. So I hope you guys find a lot of value in this. I mean, I found incredible value in it with just my conversation with her. So grab a cozy beverage and join me in this conversational journey. It's late. Okay. Bear with me. I'm recording this and it's really late. It's 10 o'clock at night. So join me in this conversational journey with Judith Joy. Hi, Judith. Welcome to the show.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm great because I'm talking to you, and I think we're going to have so much to dive into for our listeners today. So I'm very anxious to get started. And I know that so for my listeners, this ended up being a little bit of a last minute get together for us. And we were talking before we actually started recording, and we should have just pushed the record button on all of this because we had some great conversation already. So I'm excited to dive in and for the listeners to get to know who you are and kind of what you have going on in your life. So thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, quite welcome. Quite welcome.
So could you take a minute or two or however long you want and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure. I am an author, a speaker, a coach, and a teacher. And I help people move from where they're stuck to where they're unstuck. I help them develop whatever their dream is. And then we're like clearing out everything that gets in the way of whatever that dream is so that it can be created. Now, it all started because I had headaches. And I had all these headaches and headaches and headaches and headaches. And I was going to people, and I went to this one doctor because I was a dancer. And all the ladies were like, oh my goodness, he's so great. He put, chiropractor, puts you back together, da, 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 da. So I go to him. He was sharing an office with somebody else. And I looked over at the other person and said, well, what are you doing over there? What are you doing over there? Finally, I went to go visit her. And she said, there's this guy in the back room. I don't know what he's doing, but people are getting better. I'm like, okay, let's give it a try.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm open. And so he was tapping on heads and doing energy work. And this was like way long ago, like in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And I had sort of been exposed to it a little bit, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Well, I started asking questions and I'd be like, oh my goodness, what do I do? How do I do this? Why is this? Why is that? And he'd either answer the question or tell me, go talk to this person, go take this class, read this book, here's an article, whatever it was. And I've continued learning because I love to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, ooh, I'm really interested in that. And then I dive in. Ooh, I'm really interested in that. And then dive in. And what you got to realize is while I was doing all of this, I was raising 4 kids. And the third was a little bit more of a challenge than the others.
Mm-hmm.
And she likes to say that she's the star of my book, Surviving the Teenager. Anyway.
That'd be my Lily. She's our third. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. So there's something about thirds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's been an amazing journey. I've learned so much stuff. And I'm like, I just want to share it because I have created a life that works for me. And I would love for everybody else to be able to create a life that works for them.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that was just totally transformational. And then you absolutely leaned into it instead of just, I mean, you didn't just lean, you dove head first into it. So,
yes.
So what did that look like? So, and was that something that happened just, over the course of like a year, or has that been just like this lifelong journey now since that time?
I've been doing it for 22 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We started out and Dr. Janer, who is the guy in the back room,
mm-hmm.
Would say, here, read this book. And it was Power versus Force. And I read it and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much information in here. I'll never learn it. 2 years later, I read it again. Oh, I know that. And I know that. And I know that. And I know that. And I'm like, ooh, I'm really learning something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Dr. Janer said, hey, there's this lady out in California that talks to angels. Let's go to her. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Mm-hmm. So we fly out to California. I'm laying on her table, face down. Dr. Janer's at my head and she's on my right. And she says, to get rid of your headaches, you need to get rid of your husband. And then with that, nobody was touching me. My right hip went clunk. I'm like, oh, maybe there's something here. Mm-hmm. But I've been married for 20 years. I'm not doing this. Mm-hmm. I fought it all the way. Mm-hmm. But then through time, like over the next 6 months, oh,
the aha moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then, we decided to separate, and we actually cried and hugged when we decided to do that, because mm-hmm. we realized that neither of us were going to change, nor mm-hmm. did we want to. Mm-hmm. So it was all good. It's all good.
That's amazing. And so from there, then where did your life take you after that separation?
Oh, in all sorts of different directions.
Yeah.
It took me down different rabbit holes, and eventually I set out to get a new husband, mm-hmm. started dating, and I was like, oh, no, never mind. Next one. Mm-hmm. Started dating. Oh, nope, never mind. Next one. Mm-hmm. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is not working for me. Let me back out. And I literally just stopped. And I'm like, I'm not dating anymore. And that's when I really dove in. And I really decided what worked for me and who I wanted to be. And I cleared out all the cobwebs in my thinking and my feeling. Maybe not all, but right. And then I read an article, and the article said, hey, write to your future. Like, dear future husband. And I'm like, I can do that. So I started a journal, dear future husband. And I wrote to him as if he was already here. Mm-hmm. And then I'm writing every night, and I'm writing, and I'm telling him, hey, this happened today and that happened today. And I don't know what you think about this, but what about that? And, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I put it away. 14 months later, in a cleaning frenzy, I go into the nightstand, pull out this journal and go, yay, I've got a journal. Open it up and I'm like, oh, it's got writing in it. Well, let me see what it says. And it said, dear future husband, I will know it's you because you make me a better me. I'm like, wait a minute. I just started dating a guy and I just said that to him.
Oh, weird. I just got goosebumps.
And it's just like everything played out. And you have to be really careful what you write about, because I wrote in there that I am not interested in politics. I don't know if you are. It turns out it's his daily soap opera. And I'm like, oh.
Right.
Yeah, but he enjoys it.
Right. So from there,
I was like, oh my goodness, this worked for me, because he then became my husband. And I'm like, I need to share this with other people. Thus, the second book, Dear Future Lover. You can write to any future. You can write to your future husband. You can write to your future relationship. And it can be with the same husband you've got now. It can be your future wife. It could be your future job. It could be writing to your future kids, not necessarily that there are more kids, but your kids when they're, 8 years old and you want to write to them when they're 18. So you write to this 18-year-old kid. And just keep in mind that what you focus on is what you get. So if you're focused on, these are all of the fabulous things I see, and you're doing so well, and I'm so proud of you, you've already set the ideal for what it is that you want. Now you just have to align your energy to get there.
I love that. So I really encourage my listeners to write in a gratitude journal every night. And and that to me is similar. It's different, but it's similar. But what it does a lot of times when we journal or when we write at the end of the day, it's all about the crap. It's all about the negative things that happened. And, it's like a venting space. And I look at it as a gratitude journal where I ask listeners to just write down 3 things that happened that day that you're grateful for. And it might be as simple as you got a hot shower that day. If you're in the thick of newborn stage, it could be that you were grateful for the running water that provided that hot shower that day. It could be super granular, or it could be like a really, a big moment that happened. But either way, it shifts the energy from being negative to positive. Especially, I really encourage people to do it right before they go to bed, because at the end of the day, and you're kind of wallowing in self-pity that you didn't get all of these things accomplished. At the end of the day, if you write down 3 positive things that you're grateful for, it shifts that mindset when you lay your head on the pillow at night. And then you wake up, or you go to bed feeling accomplished, you go to bed feeling grateful, and then you wake up in a better mood the next day. It's hugely monumental. And then when you go back through your journal, when you go back through your gratitude journal, it's also like a diary, but it's a diary of positive things. So I love what you were saying about writing to, especially to your future children. I think that's a great idea, but it could be, like you said, a future anything, could be the future you, could be the future empty nesting mom of all of the things that you did get done that day, or all of the things that you accomplished as a mother when you're empty nesting and you're saying, did I do everything that I could have done? But it's a very positive way. And like you said, that's just very, very interesting to me with aligning that energy. That's like a very visual thing for me to think about when you're putting it in paper, you're putting out the positivity, and then you're aligning that with your future self. So you're manifesting what you want to happen. Am I kind of understanding that?
You have to first know what that is that you want to happen.
Right.
If you don't know, anything can happen.
Right. Right.
So,
I love that.
Another way, I challenge you on this one. I'm all about gratitude. And when my daughter was 3, she started asking if her dad and I were getting divorced. And we're like, no, we're fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. So basically from 3 to 14, when we told her we were getting divorced, she felt like she was being lied to. And she felt like we were telling her, you don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So she built up a lot of anger. So between the anger and then depression and anxiety, high school was very hard for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, childhood was very hard for her.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a treatment program and she went to boarding school. Where her graduating class was 12 kids.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You know, really small, intimate. It worked for her.
Mm-hmm.
She got to 21 and said, Mom, I've tried therapy. I've tried pharmaceuticals. I've tried this, that, and the other thing, and it hasn't worked. Teach me what you do. I'm like, oh my goodness.
That's amazing. Yeah.
My advice. I'm like,
oh my
yes.
gosh. Yeah, that's amazing.
So we started weekly lunches.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first thing I taught her was gratitude. So she would go at night and just a half hour of gratitude. And if it was a bad day, it was an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the challenge. Can you do gratitude all day long?
Mm.
And she talks about it, but I didn't really understand what she was saying until I was in the car with her. And she was driving and she gets on the highway. Oh, thank you, Divine. That was an easy merge. And oh, look at, he put his turn signal on. Thank you, Divine, for that turn signal. That was great. And thank you, Divine, for all the space between the cars. And thank you. You know, thank you, Taylor Swift, for writing all these songs that we're listening to for 3 hours. But it's just all day.
Uh-huh.
And as a mom, you can certainly find things to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for yourself, you can be grateful that your kids are in gymnastics
Mm-hmm.
and that they're having a really good time.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can do this podcast and it's being really successful and it's helping a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, as you go through the day, you know, you can be thankful that your shoes fit.
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching a class up at the homeless shelter and I was talking about gratitude. And one of the women there started crying. And I'm like, okay, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, her caseworker had bought her a new pair of shoes.
Mm.
She had never in her life had a new pair of shoes. And she was so incredibly grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow.
That's a humbling experience. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a podcast episode that I talked about, and it's really very similar to that, but it's finding your why. And if you're asking yourself, you know, as stay-at-home moms, we do all these very like mundane tasks over and over and over again, just to turn around and have to do them over and over and over again. You know, the dishes are never done. The laundry is never done.
Anything about
right?
that.
Right. It's just and I think as women too, we just really get caught up in these mundane tasks. And so I think if, you know, to kind of add to that, to find your gratitude, I think a lot of times you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? You know, what is the why behind these activities or these acts? And, you know, why are you driving the kids around to activities? Why are you taking them to soccer practice or gymnastics when you're like, oh, I really don't want to be doing this right now as you're in your car listening to Taylor Swift? Why am I doing this? I really want to be home. I need to be making dinner or something. But, you know, if you ask yourself the why, then that really helps find your gratitude in it. So if you're standing at the sink, and I really had this big monumental moment a couple of years ago when I was standing at the sink and I was grumpy about it and I didn't want to be doing the dishes again. And then I just had this aha moment of, I am cleaning the dishes. I'm doing the dishes because I was able to make my family a meal tonight. And then you go beyond that. My husband has a job that provides for the family so I can be home, that pays for the groceries, that allows me to make a meal to feed my family.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go so deep into that when you start asking yourself, why am I washing these dishes? Or why am I picking up after the kids? And some of that is to just create a cozy space, which then, I feel gratitude towards, and I feel grateful for. So that just takes it maybe a little bit of a step further, but I love adding that into, like what you said about adding that into your everyday and getting super granular with it. And I mean, that teaches our kids some incredible lessons too, instead of, being grumpy for the guy that cut you off when you were trying to merge or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that I had to slow down for a second because look at this rose garden that we just passed by.
Or
Or,
I'm grateful that I saw that he was merging in, so I could slow down.
yes, exactly. Exactly. So I
A
love
lot of
that.
people get stuck on the why,
Hmm.
especially moms when their kids are going, well, why, why,
Hmm. And you're
why?
over here pulling your hair out. No more whys.
So you don't want to ask yourself why.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
If you can change it up a little bit
Hmm.
and say, well, what are the benefits of doing this?
Hmm.
What's underneath this? Where am I going?
Hmm.
It's different ways of looking at the same thing.
Hmm.
And one time, I had 4 kids at this point, and the littlest was still a baby in high chair. And the 3 older ones were not helping clean.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. And I put a big chalkboard at the front door, mom on strike. And I let them make a mess.
Hmm.
And it was 21 days until I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
21 days, Judith. Oh
we, had,
my gosh.
we had fruit flies.
Oh my gosh.
It was so bad. But I had a nanny helping me.
Hmm.
And the nanny, the baby, and I cleaned up our part of the table. And
Hmm.
it was perfect.
Hmm.
And we cleaned our dishes,
Hmm.
and it was perfect. My then husband must have been on a business trip, because I don't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
that.
I'm like, was this pre-divorce or like, I know.
No, but he would be gone for 3 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, I want these kids to help. But you know what? They learned.
Hmm.
They learned what happens when you don't clean.
Hmm.
And I never really got that level of understanding down in them before.
Hmm.
But now they understood what happens if you don't clean. It's not a theoretical, we'll get bugs.
Hmm.
We got them.
Right. It's the actual consequences of your actions, not the theoretical consequences of your actions.
Right.
Hmm.
And it was really hard as a parent to live through it and to know that, oh, if someone walks in and they didn't see the sign, like my dad did.
I was going to say, did you have guests in this entire experiment? Because you need like
oh,
caution tape across the door or something.
yeah. But I knew that what I wanted was for them to see what it was,
Yeah.
and then to help clean up.
Yeah.
And after that, they were not nearly as difficult to help clean up.
Hmm.
I could write a list of, we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pick what you want out of the list and do it.
Hmm.
And they were much more likely to pitch in.
I love that. I've contemplated doing that just when I'm at my wit's end, like, that's it, I'm done. And then I'm like, oh man, I don't think I'd last very long. But 21 days, that is admirable. That's amazing. I'm just imagining what my house would look like. And, we really don't have a lot of toys. So it would be the food, I think. And
Mhm.
it would be the dishes. Although, the kids they're pretty good. They really are pretty good about
Okay.
being proactive But I mean, there's still moments. I mean, a lot of moments like laundry, there's been so many times I'm like, I want to go on strike. That's it. What would happen if I didn't do anything around here? So what you were saying is by shifting that terminology, you find a purpose behind it maybe, or an intentionality that leads to a greater good, a bigger picture instead of just what's right in front of you right now.
Right. Because you can always swoop in and save your kids.
Right.
But if you're always swooping in and saving them, then they're not really learning the consequences.
Right.
And it's much, much better if they fail when they're younger.
Right.
Because if you're always swooping in, by the time they get to college and they haven't had the experience of failing, or they haven't had the experience of the kitchen not getting clean, then they go to college and they're like, oh, these things magically happen. And then it's a really rude awakening.
Right. So tell me a little bit. We talked earlier about your high vibe. You talk a lot about that with your coaching, and
yes.
And I want to hear what you have to say about that in terms of, as stay-at-home moms, like how we can achieve that high vibe and how that kind of plays into your coaching, because you talk about uncovering who you truly are and who you are truly meant to be. And I know that you have several steps to get people there, but I'm very curious about this high vibe term that you use.
High vibe is when you have this feeling of love, peace, gratitude, kindness, and it's just like oozing out of you. And life is so good that you can think something and it actually happens. You don't have to put a lot of effort into it. This is where your power is.
Okay.
But guess what? Most people are in victimhood. And this happened to me. Shame, blame, depression, anxiety, grief. And it's all of these feelings that when you're feeling it, you really don't have the energy. So you're having to force yourself to get stuff done. So if you can do things to take responsibility for yourself, for example, the gratitude journal, and you can focus on, this is the direction I'm going. I may not hit it all the time, but that's the direction I'm going. And I'm going to feel better, and I'm going to feel better than that, and I'm going to feel better than that, and I'm going to feel even better than that. And then you start doing things to help you get there. You have laughter. You've got movement. Now, for different people, it's a different movement. Someone's going to love running, and someone's going to love pole dancing, and someone's going to love swimming, and someone else is going to love dancing, just dancing around the kitchen. And all of these things help you feel better, and they help the energy move through you, so that if you are feeling contracted, you can let the energy go and you can be expanded. And from this place, things are possible. So this is why it's the secret sauce. So what do you do in your life to help you feel better and better and better?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So first thing is movement. I'm a huge proponent of my morning routine. I really pass that on to moms, and getting up before the kids get up when they can. And so for me personally, that's what I do. I get up before the kids get up. That's a complete day changer for me. And I put water in my body every morning. I get a glass of water in, and then I go right to yoga. And I used to do these high intensity workouts, and they were very depleting first thing in the morning. And they were something that I didn't enjoy getting up for, but I was like, I need a workout. I need to move my body, but it didn't feel good. Like it felt good, but then I found myself exhausted halfway through the day. So
It's
yoga,
really good that you're listening to your body.
yeah, it took me a while. I mean, that took me a lot of years, because I mean, I grew up playing very high intensity sports. And so I thought that that was something that I needed and loved. And what I actually needed was to work on my mind and my soul, my heart, as well as my body, which is what I get from yoga. And I know some people are like cringing, like, oh, I hate yoga. But I had to really work at it, because when you're sitting there, you're supposed to be clearing your mind. And then half the time, I found myself, and still struggle with it because it's part meditative, redecorating the entire flipping bedroom, or figuring out what my next podcast episode is. And it's like, no, I need to have this time to myself and clear it all out. There's times to think, and there's times to be productive with your mind, and there's times to just be. So that's a big game changer for me, is the acts that I do in the morning. But there's definitely other things that I could probably add in at some point. So what are your tips? Tell me what you think.
I think that anything that works is worth doing.
Yeah.
And if on Monday you feel like journaling,
Mm-hmm.
and you journal.
Mm-hmm.
And if on Tuesday you're running late and you can just grab 5 minutes staring at the wall, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if on Wednesday you don't journal until 5 o'clock, do it.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Laughter, and you can go stare at yourself in the mirror and start laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we were to laugh now, eventually you get to the point of, this is so silly, I'm laughing because I'm being silly.
Mm-hmm. I've watched videos of that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can't stop. And then you're laughing and laughing and laughing. And it may start out as ha, 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 ha. But it keeps going.
Right.
You've also got all different kinds of journals that you can do. You can do a journal where you're complaining.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get everything out of my head. It's a brain dump.
That's what I call it. Yes. Brain dumps. Love it. Okay.
You can do a journal to your future. It could be your future day, your future week, your future month, your future year, whatever your future is.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a heart dump. Oh, I'm so in love. And I met this perfect person. And oh my God, this mom is so fantastic. And she's just the mom I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's a heart dump.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a journal where you're keeping track of all the great things going on in your life and what's working. It's a little bit different than I'm grateful for,
mm-hmm.
but it's everything that's working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the phone is working, the computer is working.
Mm.
Hey, my light is working. I'm able to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And you start focusing on what works, and what you focus on is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden the universe goes, oh, she's looking for things that work. Here, have some more things that work.
Mm-hmm.
And have some more, and have some more. And there's a lot of different ways to go about this. Now, as a grandparent, I'm looking at pictures that I've taken from way long ago. And I'm like, sometimes I remember the story and sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can, as a parent, go take a picture and just journal about the picture. And just go, wow, this was a great day. Mary and I went to the park and we ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and laughed all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you have to write. But you attach it to the picture and you've got this really special moment memorialized.
Mm. I love that idea. I love the what's working idea too. And it again, it really gets it a little more granular because we always focus on what isn't working or what's going wrong. But if you
Mm-hmm.
talk about what is working, that really, I could see how that would continue to manifest into positive things that are continuing to work, like more things just coming your way. So much of that is just a mindset shift, a shift in perspective to what's going on around you. Like, the items don't change, the objects don't change. Everything is still exactly as it is, but you're seeing it from a different perspective. You're seeing it from a different light. So I was telling you about that podcast recording that I just did about, and everybody will listen to that here in a couple of weeks, but with Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, with that picture in the study in the very beginning. And everybody will listen to that later. So I hope this isn't confusing, but they talked about, I mean, just a shift in perspective in what you've seen before. It's still the same objects. It's still black lines, white spaces. But when you shift your perspective and you shift your mindset, it transforms this picture from looking like a young woman to it actually being an old woman, an old lady. And it's the same data. I guess that's maybe my long-winded point. It's the same data. It's all of the same black lines, white spaces, but it's brought to your forefront, your conscious thought, completely differently. And so I love the idea of journaling that and then seeing what comes to life in the future. I mean, it may not come to life and manifest right there, but if you continue to do that over a period of time, it will manifest itself into additional positivity.
And what you focus on is what you get. So you're going to get more things that match that.
Okay.
You will actually have more experiences that match that.
Okay. I love the idea. I mean, those are so many great journaling tips too. And I love the idea of creating with the picture and actually putting a physical picture in there to the memory, to the journal. I've never done that before, and I would love to do that. So here's a question about your brain dump. And I've had this question before, because I love doing brain dumps. I mean, I love them, but do you keep a brain dump? What are your thoughts on that?
I keep pretty much everything I write.
Okay. So what if it's about somebody? What if it's about your mother-in-law and you have to brain dump about all of your thoughts and emotions and feelings behind your mother-in-law, and you're worried that somebody's going to find it when you're dead? Like, is that okay? And then here's the thing that my husband told me. He's like, why does it matter you're dead? But as a woman, as a female, I'm like, what if somebody finds this, So what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you do a ritual of getting rid of it, or do you keep it? I mean, what's your opinion?
Some people like to burn it, write it out, burn it. I ruined a really good bowl that way.
Oh, geez.
So I'm like, all right.
Ritual's gone bad.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So I don't think that anybody's going to read my journals until I die. Because in my house, we have a rule that journals are like sacred. I can leave my journal in the middle of the table and nobody is going to read it. And it sort of helped that I write in script and my kids have problems reading script.
Right.
But it's just, that's the rule and everybody obeys it. My niece, excellent writer, her first husband would read her journals and then make comments about it. So she stopped writing. So that was so sad because she's such a good writer.
Yeah.
But I recently went back and learned or read some journals because I was looking for something. And I ran across a story that was so cute. I was talking to my kids about God and, why we do what we do. And one kid said, well, who's that? And I said, well, it's sort of like the force of the universe and, whatever. And he sets the rules up and we follow the rules, whatever. I don't remember exactly what I said. But then my daughter was like, do I know him? And
personally, yeah. So innocent.
I know him. But what's really funny is that she's the intuitive one. And her business is intuition. And so, yes, she does know him or her, or, she knows this energy. So it was really nice being able to go back and read some old journals.
Yeah. And I love my gratitude journals, and I keep everything too. I'm with you. I don't get rid of any of it because oftentimes, especially my brain dumps, I can go back to them, and they're fascinating to me because I just let my mind go where it takes me. And then, I start out with these brain dumps being typically it's usually when I'm very upset and I just
Mhm.
have to get it all out. And it's not enough to talk to somebody because you don't want to dump that on another human being a lot of the times. And then there's nothing that comes from it, right? It really needs to be your own thoughts working through it yourself. And sometimes I think we expect that to come from somebody else. We expect somebody else to give us the answer. So it starts out very angry or upset or whatever. And then I can just see it as I'm writing, it kind of softens, and then it continues to soften, and then it comes to some understanding, and then it kind of comes to the solution, and then it kind of comes to the reason why it was all happening. I mean, it's just sort of this progression of
Right. So what you've done is you've
understanding.
moved into the high vibe.
Yes. Woohoo. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that you tied that into that. Okay. So, yeah, because when I'm done, I feel so much better after I've wrote that out and come to a high vibe. I've come to my high vibe on my own because I would never be able to come to that if I was having that conversation with my husband or a girlfriend. And that kind of goes back a little bit into what you're saying with that victim mentality is we kind of expect that to come from other people to help us, right? Instead of, that's why I like the brain dump, because that's us helping ourselves, us getting ourselves to that high vibe.
Now, a lot of
Um,
times people get stuck
mhm,
because they're in the complaining mode
mhm,
and they can't quite shift into feeling better about it.
okay.
So if you start complaining, then you start asking yourself questions.
Okay.
Um, for example, give me a problem that you're working through.
Oh, geez, right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think about one. Well, the first one that came to mind was we just went on a trip and we had a great time, just the two of us, just Brad and I. We had a great time, just the two of us. And we really felt that like connection again. And then we get home and it's like, boom, snapped right back into mom mode. And and it's not that the connection is gone, it's just that the quality of connection has shifted. So now I'm just trying to kind of like process why that happens and then how to kind of work through that. I don't know if that's a good example for you.
Okay. So imagine you're doing a brain dump
Mhm.
and, oh, we were so in love and we had all this time together and we really connected. And then I came home and there were the kids.
Mm.
And they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And they were supposed to do this and blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Okay. So what's right about this that you're not getting? That's a question that you can literally write the question
Mhm.
and it will shift your focus.
Mm.
Or you can write the question of, if I were to leave this behind, what would that actually look like?
Mhm.
And then your mind can go off in a dozen different directions. Your mind might go into the direction of, I'm never leaving again. It
Mhm.
might go in the direction of, I'm leaving right now and getting a job. It might go
Yeah.
in the
I
direction,
quit.
yeah, I quit. It might go in the direction of, huh, they really do need me. Wow, that's a really nice feeling.
Mhm.
So just ask the question, see where it goes. Ask another question, see where it goes. Ask another question, see where it goes.
Mhm.
Knowing that ultimately the connection that you had with your husband is what you're aiming for.
Mhm.
So how can you have that connection and be a stay-at-home mom?
Mhm. That's interesting. I'm going to have to write about that now. I'm like taking notes in my mind. I'm going to have to go journal about that now. So for my stay-at-home mom listeners, other than journaling, what are some of your tips? So we talked about journaling, we talked about movement. Is there anything else that moms or stay-at-home moms can do to kind of manifest that high vibe or to get into, do you call it manifesting? Do you manifest into that high vibe or do you create the high vibe? What are your thoughts on that?
You create the high vibe,
Okay.
and then from there, you manifest what you desire.
Okay. So how do you create that high vibe?
Pay attention to what you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're reading a book that's really sad,
Mm-hmm.
and you're starting to feel sad, and then your kid comes up and you yell at the kid because you were feeling sad because you were reading a book,
Mm-hmm.
and it had nothing to do with the kid, you know, you might want to change what you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to change what you're watching on TV. You might want to change the movies that you watch. You might want to change the songs you listen to, because books and movies and TV and songs, they're all programming you.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to be programmed with?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be programmed with feeling things that make you feel uncomfortable? Do you want to be programmed with things that make you feel really low vibe and like you're a victim?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you like to watch Gaia TV and go, wow, this is really cool stuff. Hey, kids, let's watch this together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a different way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
You still get to watch your TV, but what are you watching?
Right. I am very affected by television these days after I've had children as a mother. I'm very affected by it.
What do you think that's about?
I have so much time during the day to think about it, either consciously or subconsciously, when it's just me and my own thoughts at home. So I think that I tend to like news, anything that's going on in the news, social media, anything that's like negative television. I think I absorb it and it just sticks in my head and it just stays there all day because I don't really have a lot of thought process or other adult interaction outside of the kids. So it just lingers. I don't know if that makes sense. And I haven't really figured all of it out yet, but I'm very sensitive to shows that I watch on a variety of levels. Anything that's too violent, anything that's like toxic marriage shows or anything like that. It has to be something that's like happy and feel good, because I have such a hard time separating anything that's negative or angry. I have a really hard time separating a show from my reality, I guess, what's
Okay.
going on right in front of
What's
me.
happening is when you read, you
Mhm.
get to use your imagination.
Mhm.
When you watch something, they're taking that away from you and they're saying, this is what you imagine.
Mm.
Then from there, you get a feeling about what you're watching.
Mhm.
And it's that feeling that is sticking.
Okay.
So you can work through the feeling so that you're not bothered by it and you're living life more from a place of neutrality.
Mhm.
Or you can just go, you know what, this isn't working for me. I'm bowing out.
Mhm.
And there's lots of magazines out there if you don't want to read a whole book.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of TV shows. You don't have to choose Criminal Minds.
Mhm.
But pay attention to how your body feels when you're watching something. And that will give you a clue as to how it's going to play out.
Mhm. That's very interesting because it is the feeling. So I'm thinking it's stuck in my brain, like stuck in my mind, but it really is a feeling that's stuck within me that I have a hard time just letting go of.
Right.
Until I've had time to process it or time to think about it and time to let it go, which is why more and more I just want to show that feels good and feels happy, because I have so much other hard stuff that goes on during the day that I don't want a false reality show, or even if it's like a true crimes show or something, like I can't take that on top of the emotions and the heaviness of 3 kids, and a husband, because you're constantly a sponge for all of those other emotions and feelings that carry with you throughout the day. So that's probably why anymore I say I just have to let it go and say, no, I just want a feel good show or a feel good movie, because all of the other stuff is very hard now. So
And
as
if you watch these other movies
mhm,
or shows, everybody else says, oh, that's reality.
mhm.
Well, that may be their reality. It doesn't have to be yours.
Yes, I agree with that completely. So Judith, as a mother,
Mhm.
how did you find, or how do I want to ask that? How did you handle your moments of low vibe, I guess, when you were a mother, or even now? But very specifically, I'm super interested in how you handled this, like what we're talking about when you were a mother.
Um, I didn't handle it well.
Mm-hmm.
It was before I learned a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a marriage where he thought sarcasm was just like the best thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I was always the butt of the joke.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like chipping away at me little by little. So I go into the marriage and I'm like this strong, confident woman, and I leave the marriage and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't working for me anymore, but I had a lot of headaches. And what I realized was that very often my headaches were my body saying, we don't want to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was, if it's a group activity or if it was something with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we just don't want to participate in this. We're going to give you a headache so that you have to stay home. We're going to give you a headache so you have to withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't always work because I always have the opinion, and it is just an opinion, it's a point of view. I can push through anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved to do with the kids was to take their homework and play.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time that was so much fun. We went into the bathroom and I gave them shaving cream.
Mm-hmm.
And they were supposed to spell out their words for the spelling list in shaving cream on the mirror.
Oh, fun.
It was all over the place. But we took something that was low vibe spelling list,
Mm-hmm.
turned it into something fun. And guess what? I didn't have a headache that day because I was having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look for, oh, I have to do this. Well, how can we make that fun? How can we turn that into play?
Mm-hmm. So I want to lean into that a little bit, because I've been kind of experimenting with this idea that I've had. And it's, if I could just lean in every day to what I want to be doing, not what I
Okay.
have to be doing. We get so caught up in what we have to do, checking off all the boxes, my need to do list, my to-do list. I have to do this. But what if you leaned into all of the things that you wanted to do?
Well, some
And
people will say, I want to do the to-do list.
yeah, but I'm not saying like I want to do the to-do list. And maybe, and there was a couple of times I was like, I want to do the laundry today because the end goal is I want a cleaner space so we can sit down as a family and have this calm environment. But there's other times where I say, I don't give a shit about the laundry today. I want to go down into the garden. And I want to get my hands dirty, and I don't want to answer the phone, and I don't want to check my emails. So it's like what I don't want to do, right? It kind of ends up being like, well, these are the things that I don't want to do. But what I want to do is go for a walk with the girls down on the bike path and enjoy the sunshine, even though all the things that I have to do are still here. But those things are always going to be there. So, so what do you think about that? I mean, is that leaning in the direction of finding your high vibe?
It is, especially if you can look at it as what's going to help me feed my soul today.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go outside and garden.
Mhm.
And you may get an hour of gardening. And then you come in and going, wow, I'm really messy. So I'm just going to throw these clothes in the washing machine. And then the laundry starts to get done.
Mhm.
But you took the time to feed your soul.
Mhm.
And this is so important.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what it is, whatever hobby that you have that you like. My hobby right now is like so bizarre for me anyway.
Mhm.
I take paint and pour it on a canvas and take a hair dryer and blow it around.
Oh, fun. Oh my gosh, that sounds fun.
And it is fun. And I've done it where I've sat on the floor and I've put it on a table and, just experimenting with different colors
Mhm.
and a little bit of paint and a lot of paint. And I'm not a painter.
Mhm.
And it doesn't take forever.
Mhm.
It's like in an hour, I've got a picture.
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
just fun.
Mhm.
And the reason I started doing it was I had a client come over and he was really low vibe and everything in his life was going wrong.
Mhm.
I'm like, we have to snap out of this.
Mhm.
So we created this activity so that he could have fun
Mhm.
and snap out of it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, I like this too.
I'm going to keep doing this. I
Yeah.
love that. I did an interview with Pasha Marlowe. I don't know if you've heard of Pasha. She's she's fun. She uses humor to heal trauma. And so when you were talking about laughing, part of her healing process for her groups is just like laughing. You just start laughing, like what you were saying. But a lot of our conversation was like leaning into things that feel good. And so I was telling her, because when people start asking you as a woman and as a mother, like, what do you enjoy doing? People kind of have this like, oh shit moment. Like, I don't know what I enjoy doing. I don't know what I like to do for fun because all of the fun that I do is dictated by my children. Right.
I
And
like
so,
playing with the kids.
right. And so I was telling her one of the things that I lean into is just like slightly unorthodox, but really isn't that bizarre. Unorthodox maybe for me, but really totally normal for a lot of people is I was sitting out on the back deck. We live very rural. So I was sitting out on the back deck in the mornings with my coffee topless in the sunshine because it felt good. Nobody was awake, nobody was around. It just felt good. I'm like, well, I live in a rural community, like not even a community, a rural area where there's nobody around. And I let the girls run around naked all day long and enjoy the sunshine. And they always say how good this feels on their body. Mom, why don't you come, hang out with us and lay in the sun? And I'm always too busy. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to sit on the deck and drink my coffee. And I just took my shirt off one day
I
and I
love it.
just sat in the sun just soaking it up on my skin. And I felt so alive and so feminine and so confident. And I was like, why don't we do some more of these things? Why don't we lean into more of the things that we want to do and enjoy doing?
You're
Because
feeding your soul.
you're feeding your soul. Yes. And I do feel like to, confirm high vibe. I feel like when I do that, at the end of the day, I don't focus on any of the stuff that I didn't get done because I was so filled
Very
up by all of the positive things that we did do that fed our souls. And if
Yeah.
it feeds my soul in that way, 99.9% of the time, it doesn't matter what we're doing, but it's going to feed the kids' souls too, because they see me happy. And then that vibe is transferred onto them. And then it
Yeah.
just becomes this super, super high vibe in the family, right? That high vibe. It's like that. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. But if mama's happy and she's vibing, then the house vibrates. Like
Yeah.
it's so
You are setting
contagious.
the tone for the house.
Yes. Yes, which is the whole point of the podcast, right? Is because I
Right.
feel like if we're living our best selves, if we're living our high vibe, I'm going to use your term, then we pass that on to our kids and we present our best selves to them. They then present their best selves to the world. And then we build up these communities and we change the world. We're changing the
Yep.
world.
One vibe at a time.
One vibe at a time. Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, Judith, I know it's getting late there, so I don't want to keep you for too long, but do you have any other like words of wisdom or tips for my mamas out there that you could just kind of leave us with?
One of the simplest things you can do is breathing.
Mm.
If you breathe in for 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, hold your breath for 4. Sort of make a box as you do it.
Mm-hmm.
4 times, it's a minute. It's like a minute and 4 seconds, but it's a minute.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You can find a minute in your day. You can find a minute to just breathe deeply. And this will help you reset. And it really will make such a difference in your world.
That's a great tip. Thank you for that. I've practiced that a little bit in yoga. We've done some breathing technique in yoga. And
now bring it out of yoga into life.
Yeah, it's transformative. I mean, I was talking earlier about redecorating the living room or redecorating the bedroom when I do that, and that goes away because it forces you to focus on your breath, and it helps some people if they count. Is it okay if they kind of count as they breathe?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. I love that tip. Thank you. So how can the listeners find you?
Alrighty. I have a website, yeswithjoy.com.
Okay.
And there's tons of information on there, lots of free stuff. I've got blogs going back years. And, basically everything I write about is like, oh, here's a tip and here you can do this. And, oh, did you know you can do this? And, all this. I've got videos on there. And I've got social media, all of the big ones, except TikTok. I didn't go there yet.
Okay.
Not my thing. And if someone really wants to write to me, there's a contact page on the website, or they can just write straight to Judith at yeswithjoy.com.
Okay. And I'll put all of your contact information in the show notes too, so people can find you as well. And ordering your books, if people are interested in ordering your books, what's the best place for them to go to purchase those?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and Apple.
Okay. Perfect. Are they on audio as well?
That's a really good idea. I'll have to do that.
Okay. What a positive way of answering that question. I love it. Oh, that's great. That's all good information to know. So thank you so much for coming on to today's show, Judith. I really appreciate your wisdom and your insight. And I have tons of things that I want to work on now, just in this conversation, with different journaling prompts, different journaling ideas, and the breathing technique too that you left us with is amazing. So thank you so much for all of that valuable information and tips today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yep. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Adios.
Bye. Hey, mama friend. Thank you so much for joining me today in this conversational journey with Judith Joy. I'm blown away with some of the information that she gave us, and I can't wait to start taking some of it forward and actually utilizing it in my life. Please remember that it's not enough just to absorb this information that we cover in these podcasts. You actually need to take action. You need to take a step forward in utilizing some of the things that she suggested. She gave us some amazing, amazing tips. I will put all of Judith's contact information in the show notes below. So if you want to reach out to her for coaching, if you're interested in buying her book, the links will be in the show notes as well. Please follow her on social media. Yeah, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to her because she's very clearly a wealth of knowledge and 22 years worth of experience. I feel like that definitely makes her a huge expert in these topics. So also, please remember that I believe in you, I care about you, and I'm so incredibly proud of you. Thank you so much for listening today, sweet mama. If you found value in this show, please share it with another mama friend. Share it to your social media. That's the best way that I can get this show to grow. It's the only fee that I ask. I give you all this free information. Judith gives us all this free information. And the only thing that I ask is that you share it today. So thank you again for listening. I look forward to talking to you again soon.